Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Veg Networking Canada, where vegan plant-based companies connect and collaborate. Today, we have a special guest with us, but before we begin, we're going to start with a land acknowledgement. So it's important to honor, acknowledge, and respect that many of us are located on the traditional, ancestral, unceded territories of many Indigenous peoples of Canada. So our special guest today for Veg Networking Canada is deeply rooted in disease and pain prevention. She is a health, wellness, and vegan advocate since the age of 8, a plant-based product developer, chef, and holistic nutritionist. Veg Networking Canada is pleased to introduce the CEO and co-founder of Plant Life Consulting, Dominica Bay. Welcome, Dominica.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
We're so thrilled you're here to share more about your story, yourself, and your business. So why don't you start personally, I guess, for us and bring us back to, I guess, the age of 8 when you had your sort of vegan origin story?
Yes, 1989. It was a special year. So when I was in grade 3, I was really lucky that I had my favorite teacher, Mrs. Brown, and she taught us a lot about the environment and animals. I always loved animals, but really she was an animal lover too. So she was very hands-on, which really suited my learning style. And we were very blessed to be able to hatch chicks. And I thought this was so fascinating to be able to incubate them and really just see the birth of life. It was so miraculous and beautiful to me. So it came that day when we started to see little beaks start picking through the eggs, and these gorgeous chicks that I just think are so adorable and cute just came to life. And just to be able to be part of that process, I thought was really beautiful and life-changing for me. And how I became plant-based was on that day after soccer practice. My mom picked us up. I had 5 brothers. My mom had 6 kids in 8 years, Catholic family, so can understand. And we went to McDonald's, which was like, you know, a big treat, right? And my favorite thing to get at McDonald's was always chicken nuggets and sweet and sour sauce. I didn't really care about the fries. I just wanted those chicken nuggets, and I would go through 2 or 3 sauces. I would really dunk it in. And as we were sitting together and I was ready to get into those nuggets, I just kept thinking about my chicks. I was so worried about them and who was going to look after them overnight. And as I took that nugget and I dunked it into the sauce, all of a sudden I made that connection, you know, like aha moment, as Oprah would say. And I made that connection that the nugget was coming from these adorable chicks. And I put it down, and all of a sudden, I know it sounds dramatic, but I just started smelling like death around me. Like the smell that I usually loved about McDonald's, I couldn't stomach it. All of a sudden I looked around and I saw people just biting into burgers and things dripping off. And I just found it revolting. And I went outside and I started crying. And my mom came out to me and she said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I can't do it. I don't want to eat animals anymore." She goes, "Well, it's just a phase. Is it your teacher? Your teacher's telling you to be vegetarian. You know, you better eat up. You need the protein." She is a wonderful mother and I love her, and she was doing her best. But at that point, I made up my decision. No way, Jose, I am not eating animals anymore. And so she had said to me, "Okay, well, there's 8 mouths to feed in this house. So if you're not going to eat any animal products anymore, you better learn how to feed yourself." So that's what I did. So I got my own job. I started working, I started making my own food. And then I really just dove into nutrition and, you know, plant-based meals and alternatives. And I got really obsessed with what I call renovating recipes, where I would go in and figure out how to make it without animal products. And that's really when my passion really started. And I always was trying to inspire other people to live more of a plant-forward lifestyle. Sometimes it backfired because people just didn't understand, and it was a young age, you know, but I learned through the years to try to do it in a loving, positive way. And that's really my passion today. I haven't shook it since, and it's been one of the best decisions of my life.
Wow, that is quite a epiphany to have as a young child, as you described it. So thank you so much for sharing that. It's probably pretty clear for a lot of other people listening. They may have had their own similar sort of revelation at that point. That's very interesting. So second question for you is more surrounded business, entrepreneurship. That's what Veg Networking Canada is built on. So did your entrepreneur story start with Plant Life Consulting, or was there something before, or what did that look like for you?
Yeah, good question. Well, to be honest, because of the fact that I started feeding myself at age 8, I started having to make my own money. So, I mean, my first job was paper route, right? But I actually ended up taking on like 4 or 5 territories. And so my first real business was at that age, because I would hire my brothers and my cousins and my friends to work for me in the route. And I got the point where I wasn't even delivering a single paper. I was just organizing the route. And then the next business I had was a babysitter's club, because I was always sought after, because I love looking after kids. And I mean, I was doing it at home for free. Why not go out and make some money doing it, right? And they only had 2 kids, not 5 boys. So I got really busy. And so I was inspired by my favorite book growing up, which is The Babysitter's Club. And I started my own babysitter's club. And then I started looking after pets when, people went away and all that. So I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit. And then I went on cruise ships for 10 years and was cruise director, and that I was self-contracted. That was my own business. So I had to pay all my own team members and support staff, because it was a sales and marketing job. There was no base wage or anything like that. It was all commission. So what you put in, you got out. And then my husband and I ended up retiring from ships and moved to Palm Desert, and we had a wellness center there, Desert Longevity Clinic. So we did like body treatment, and we did nutrition therapy. I became a holistic nutritionist, plant-based chef. And then we moved back to Vancouver, and we had a fitness studio, as Helen knows, because she was one of our clients there. And big part of that was nutrition counseling and just supporting people with their goals. And from that, we ended up doing meal delivery and ended up doing kombucha. And I stopped drinking back in when was that? It was about 12 years ago. And I did it to support my brother. To be honest, it was probably a blessing in disguise. I like to have my wine o'clock. But my brother really struggled after we lost our other brother, sadly, to mental health in 2006. And so I said, I will do this with you, because he's a schizophrenic and he can't drink with his medication. It was literally a life or death. So I said, I just haven't drank since. But I ended up switching booze for booch. And I started fermenting my own kombucha and did a longer ferment, so there was no residual sugar, and started fermenting botanicals and started working with CBD, which really helped with some of my PTSD and anxiety and performance and recovery and all that. And then based on that community in the natural plant-based world, I became friends with other fellow founders that had really great plant-based better for you products, functional products, and ended up helping them. And that's how Plant Life really was birthed, just by supporting essentially my friends in the industry. And here we are today.
Again, thank you so much for sharing. That's a excellent story about being an entrepreneur, essentially from forever, paper route days, making mixtapes for your friends, selling chocolate bars, whatever it is. I totally get it. So in the arena that you're in right now with Plant Life Consulting, what are some trends that you're spotting that you'd like to share?
Yeah, the main thing is function. People want to get more out of their diet to support their lifestyles than ever. And that's a really good thing. People are becoming more educated. They're reading labels more. They're being more mindful what they're putting in their body for people, for human health, and for the planet, which is really good. And it's really exciting to see our plant-based movement essentially accelerating and taking off. I mean, years ago, there was maybe at Expo West, which is the biggest health show in the world. I would say maybe, 5% were plant-based businesses. But in the last 10 years, 5 years, I mean, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. In fact, this year, McCain, of all people, announced that moving forward, they're going to have a plant-based SKU in every one of their sets. And that's a pretty big statement. So this is not a trend. This is not going away. And people are now looking at not just plant-based, but healthier options. So you'll see a lot of plant-based, protein and meat alternatives trying to, clean up their ingredient panel. Maybe they started with but they're wanting to make better choices for human health as well. I believe that every plant-based SKU on the shelf is a way forward, is a win. But now really the trend is, okay, so you've made it plant-based. How can you make it better for not just the health of animals on the planet, but for human health, for nutrition as well? And that's really exciting to see, right? And I would say that out of all the biggest trends is definitely gluten-free and no sugar added. People are really mindful about the sugar intake, and 62% of people are actively trying to avoid gluten because of the inflammatory effect as well, and also being mindful of different oils. You can always tell the integrity of a brand by its ingredient panel. So I encourage everybody to read nutritional labels, read ingredient panels, and really just be mindful about everything they put in their body, because it's an opportunity to heal or hurt. And the choice, the power really is within you.
So you're right. Maybe not a trend as much as that question should be framed as, what are some transformations that you're noticing? Because we don't want these to be trends in the sense of coming and going. They're sort of here to stay. And you're talking about functionality, gluten-free, no sugar added. That makes a lot of sense. So where is Plant Life Consulting going in the future? That might be 1 year, 5 year, 10 year. You might have a 30-year plan. So where's Plant Life Consulting going in the future?
Well, I do not want to stop until all animals are removed from the supply chain. That is my mission. So, you know, if you're going to bury me, I'm gonna go down trying, right? Because I don't believe that animals have any place in the supply chain, and we prove every day that we can all live healthy, fulfilling, happy lives and be well nourished without having animals on the plate. And the more people that we can send that message to and inspire in a loving way, the better. So my dream is to walk through a regular grocery store and to be all plant-based. And I do admire, you know, Vegan Supply, of course, and PlantX, and these wonderful companies that are coming out being all plant-based, which is like Disneyland for us, right? Be able to go in and know that everything is safe for us to eat. It's all cruelty-free. But I'm hoping that as the years go by, the plant-based section and the sets just grow bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where, you know, there's just no place for animals anymore. And I mean, just like we used to, you know, go to the bars in college and we would come home with smoke in our hair and have a shower. And now nobody's, you know, well, not nobody, but not many people smoke anymore. I think that that's really the future, is that, you know, my dream is that from, you know, 15, 20 years from now, sooner the better, but, you know, that people are going to just be as grossed out by cigarettes as they are of consuming animals.
Hear, hear. I think we can all agree, those of us who are listening. That's the interesting thing. Maybe they have difference of opinions, but it's an interesting conversation to have. And we as well, you know, all of us who are here with you today share that same vision. So thank you so much for casting it so perfectly. Next question we have, there's no right or wrong answers, nor is there for any of these questions, but it's centered around sort of giving back, charitable organizations. So founders might do something personally, or the company themselves might have that embedded in their model. But the question is, does Plant Life Consulting support any charitable organizations?
Yeah, so when I tragically lost my brother, February 2006, we lost him to mental health. And I really believe that your gut is your second brain. And during that time, although he was struggling, he was also malnourished. And so I really want to be able to inspire people to make good nutritional choices, you know, for their body, their mind, and soul. I really believe in the gut-brain connection and believe it is pivotal to all of our mental health. And so I started the AJ Bay Foundation. So we've raised over $250,000 towards BC mental health and working towards integrating nutrition programs. I'm working with Coast Mental Health right now to try to help some of the facilities that help people like my brother to improve their meal plans, because oftentimes, you know, you are what you eat. And yes, of course, they do have these, you know, ailments that they can't help. But if we can improve their quality of life by inspiring them to, you know, get good sleep, drink lots of water, get some sunshine, do some sort of movement that they love, whatever that may be. Certainly, I believe a lot in therapy with animals to reduce anxiety and companionship and bring some joy to your life as well, and helping them to make some switches to improve the you know, the nutrition and the overall health. We also work with Canucks for Kids, the Autism Network, and we do a scholarship every year at Vancouver Community College where my brother AJ went. We give it specifically to someone that goes above and beyond and gives back to the community through service. And we work with the Union Gospel Mission.
All right. Did you say AJB Foundation?
AJ Bay. AJ Bay.
AJ Bay, of course. Wow. And all the other ones as well. Well, that's a whole nother transformation as well too, is being very proud of the giving back aspect to the businesses and what we're seeing, whether it's vegan, plant-based or not. So thank you so much for all that your company does for all of those deserving organizations. So earlier on, you mentioned, I think you said your favorite book, Babysitter's Club. Next question for you is, can you recommend some books, maybe podcasts, or maybe mobile apps that you use on your phone that help with business, entrepreneurship, mental health, physical health, things that inspire you? Do you have any of those recommendations for folks?
Oh, for sure. I mean, if I'm not on a call or Zoom working, I'm typically love listening to podcasts. I really love music, but I also really love podcasts. So Taste Radio by Ray Latif is by far the best podcast if you are a food and beverage brand that you can listen to. It's entertaining, it's fun, it's inspiring. Bevna and Nosh are by far the premier in terms of better for you food and beverage companies. And it's like taking your master's in food and beverage. So, and it's a free resource that I recommend everyone does. Of course, Rich Roll is a huge inspiration for me. I mean, being an athlete growing up and being very involved with fitness and sports, this is an Ultraman endurance that proves that you can, do Ironmans and be fueled on plants. So I really love that he, goes out there. I really love his message. I've never not been on the same, wavelength of him in terms of what he thinks. And his I like his approach. Like, he's very loving and kind and just gently tries to inspire the community. And I think that is a good approach. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention probably my favorite person in the plant-based industry that inspires me every day, and that's Tabitha Brown. I think she's done so much for our plant-based movement. I mean, if I'm ever having, a moment, like let's say I just talked to a supplier and one of our supply went up a couple dollars a pound or a kilo, and that's going to affect our overall COGS big time, or I can't get pouches for 4 months because there's a backlog, or whatever the situation is. I know it's a little tab time that I need. And I just go on her, I see that gorgeous smile. I mean, she's got to be the most beautiful person I've ever seen. The smile, the face, well, hello there. She just makes you feel so at peace, like everything's going to be okay. And I really feel that she's done a tremendous amount of work for our plant-based community and inspiring people that no matter what, you can make more plant-forward choices. She does it in a very fun, uplifting, joyful way, and she always brings a smile to my face.
And you speak for probably everybody listening in terms of talk about a contagious smile, laugh, very, very, the most warm, the most inviting. And you mentioned a few others, but of course, Rich Roll, it goes without saying, the interesting lens that he can speak through to a point that you mentioned earlier, tying the two together in terms of like addiction and how important that is to open up that conversation, because, entrepreneurship and, that whole world as well too. There's a lot of stigma associated with what can or can't we talk about. So I think that's important to note too, and why Rich probably resonates with a lot of people in such a different way than Tabitha. But what a great movement, how we have those polar opposites almost, so important to what we're all doing. So thank you for sharing who inspires you in the podcast realm and stuff like that. That is the second to last question in terms of businesses that inspire you or that you look to in where Plant Life Consulting is going. And it's tough for you because you work with so many other brands, and we don't want to put you on the spot like you have to pick your favorite child or something like that. But in terms of inspiration from a branding standpoint or business operations standpoint, is there anybody that you look to that does help with those things?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, any brand that is plant-based, I'm your fan. I go out of my way to support you. Even if I don't need you, you're going in my basket, just because I know what an impact that has. We can all vote with our fork, and the more brands that more plant-based brands that get supported, the more they're going to intrigue the buyer, the retailer, and that does have a trickle-down effect. So on that note, anyone watching, you do have the power to make the change you want to see. Every single time you spend a penny, you have an impact on who you want to support and what your values are. So don't feel that your impact isn't going to be acknowledged, because it does. It makes a huge, huge, huge difference. So obviously, I'm very inspired by impact-driven companies that are, go the full yard to get B Corp certified, or 1% for the planet, 1% of the people, or people like Vanessa from Mindful Foods that give back to rescuing dogs. I work with Justo's plant-based dips that are very, very impact driven and focused on sustainability. And I really love working with minority owned businesses, because the truth is with CPG and food and beverage particularly, is there is a real discourse in terms of funding. So 63% of CPG food and beverage brands on the market now are funded by females and particularly minority women. And of that, 2% of all funding for venture capital for food and beverage companies goes to women, and 0.2% for women of color. So just because I have pasty white skin, I have 10% more chance of getting funding, which I wasn't very successful with. So it's something that I'm really passionate about because we definitely need to course correct. It's not right. And it just doesn't make any sense to me, because there's so many great brands out there trying to do the right thing for the planet, for the environment, and for humanity, and they're just not getting the recognition. So the best thing you can do is, like I said, vote with your dollar, support them. I mean, it doesn't cost anything to like a business, to make a comment, to refer a business. I mean, for anyone, doesn't matter if you're food and beverage or whatever, we just all have to band together and really be as active as we can to really support our community.
Well, you just basically answered in part, I think, our last question for you, which is like advice, wisdom, and stuff like that. You're, dropping gems in terms of we've all seen that image. It's free to make a Google review or whatever it is to support a business, right? And then some other advice that you dropped in there for consumers who might be plant curious, flexitarian, fully one way or the other, that their decision does matter, right? That classic saying, "Oh, who am I?" said 8 billion people or whatnot. So thank you. And with that being said, is there any, you can frame it as giving advice or lessons or wisdom that you've learned that you want to share? And because this is the last question that we have for you, and then we'll leave the floor open if there's anything else that you want to mention. But we're happy to hear no right or wrong answers about advice or wisdom.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I know it sounds cheesy, but I think the most important thing we can all do as humans is listen to your heart, right? Listen to your gut, because there is a moment in every entrepreneur story that you feel like a calling, to do it, right? And you just can't shake it. You can't shake it, because let's be honest, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to have your own business, right? I mean, if you look at the alternative of working 9 to 5, right? And having all that other time off and sort of leaving the office or whatever your workplace is and sort of living your life versus the lives that we all live, right? Which is essentially 24/7. But when you're so passionate about what you do, there's just no alternative. It's do or die, right? And you will do whatever you can. And for me, what really keeps me going is the impact that I see in the founders. I mean, they are so incredible. And I just admire their strength and their courage and their innovation, and they are the change I want to see. So I don't want to let them down, because I want to do a good job so they can succeed, so we can really make a big dent in terms of what's on the menu, what's on the shelf. And that's really what drives me every day. Plus, working with these incredible founders, they do become like family, right? And so I feel that if you are blessed enough to work in a field that you really love, with people that inspire you every day, that you generally really care about, then that's just hitting the jackpot. Because I think that we're all driven as human beings to live a life of purpose and mission, and to be able to know that what we're doing in the world, our contribution is going to make a difference. I mean, at the end of the day, I always think, what's your obituary going to say? What do you want to do for this world? What kind of an impact do you want to lead? And that's how I try to live every day. I'm not perfect, but I do try to keep that in the back of my mind, and that helps to push me forward to really be able to make significant shifts.
Well, you heard it here, everybody listening, entrepreneurs, professionals, leaders. Dominica's sort of parting advice is to ensure, whether you're just starting, in the middle, near the end, or whatever it might be, to continue to tap into your intuition. So thank you so much, Dominica, for sharing more about yourself and Plant Life Consulting. And everybody, it'll probably be in the show notes, but it's PLNT. Before we let everybody know your website and your Instagram where they can check you out, Dominica, is there any announcements or anything you want to leave us with?
Just that we are offering all Veg Network community 25% off any of our services. So if you are interested in even just having a chat, please feel free to reach out. We can just talk about some of the different support that you may need. And I just want to say a very special thank you to Justin, to Sandra for welcoming with open arms, being so kind, and of course Helen for birthing this wonderful community, and everyone else. And I'm just so thrilled and honored to be a part of it. Whatever I can do to help and support other people, I definitely will. And just want to thank you all for your time today.
Well, we want to thank you for your time and for being here and telling us so much great information. It was really a pleasure to have a conversation with you and have everybody listening. As this is designed to be evergreen content, we know things change and move so fast, but there are some certain nuggets of inspiration and things that do stand the test of time. So thank you so much for sharing more about you and your business. Everybody listening, you can find out more online, www.plantlife.com. And as mentioned, it's PLNT. So plantlife.com, PLNTlife.com. And on Instagram, it's PLNTlife_consulting, PLNTlife_consulting. Thank you so much for your time today, Dominica, and everybody else. We'll catch you from the West Coast to the East Coast of Canada and back for another episode of Veg Networking Canada soon. Take care. Bye for now.